Adventure on the Plains by Jonathan Taylor. Read by Jonathan Taylor. Chapter 6. Fort Independence. The route Jack was taking to Independence would take about 3 days on horseback. Once he left Philadelphia, he went due west. He would get up early in the morning, eat a hasty breakfast, saddle his horse, which he had named Shadowmane, and he hit the trail. Midday he would eat some lunch, usually cornbread, and then keep riding until it was dark. Then he would practice building a small campfire, heat up some stew, and then go to sleep on the ground. Thus, after 3 days of riding, Jack arrived at Fort Independence the afternoon of the third day. Fort Independence was the fort where most of the trails going west started. It was situated on the border where the woods and hills stretched to an end, and flat plains, dotted with jagged, towering rocks, spread out to the horizon. The fort itself was constructed with logs, sharpened at the tip, and laid vertically around the town. A walkway was built a few feet from the top of the wall, for the defenders to shoot at the enemy. There was a great iron door, cut into the wall for entrance into the town. Jack saw lots of colored wagons around the fort, all preparing for the trip. Some were pulled by oxen, others were pulled by mules, and a few were pulled by horses. Around the wagons, settlers were packing gear, herding cows and sheep, or trading for food. He also saw many traders, trappers, and other rough characters. They were generally dressed in buckskins, had rawhide hats. They wore also a kind of shoe that Jack didn't recognize, but he later found out that they were moccasins. They were leading mules loaded with many different pelts, going around and trading with the settlers. After taking this all in for a minute, Jack rode down the hill and into the fort. Inside there were many log cabins and shops. It was crowded with settlers walking down the streets with sacks of food, and many old-timers riding their mounts. Jack rode up to the Santa Fe wagon train headquarters building and tied Shadowmane to the hitching post. Inside he found a person behind a desk writing a letter. "Hello, I am looking for Jeff Thompson. Do you know where he is?" "Oh, are you the new assistant for Bill Roberts, the scout?" "Yes, I just came in from Philadelphia." "Wow, welcome to Fort Independence. Bill is away right now, but he should be back in an hour. If you want to find a place to bunk for the night, the hotel is just across the street." "Thanks," said Jack, and he went across the street to reserve a bed. An hour later, Jack was back at the office. He saw 2 men inside talking, and they stopped when he entered. One of them, who looked to be in his late 30s, was a tall, thin man with a black hair, a mustache, and a serious face. The other one was old with a gray beard and hair, and was about 63. He looked rough, but was actually quite cheerful and friendly. "Hello," spoke up the first. "I hear that you are Jack Bedford, the new assistant. My name is Jeff Thompson, and this is my scout, Bill Roberts." "Pleased to meet you," replied Jack. "I hope I wasn't disturbing you." "Oh no, we've just been waiting for you," said Bill. "As Jeff said, my name is Bill Roberts, though most people in these diggings call me Bronco Bill. The reason I wanted an assistant is that I'm young and old now, and the responsibilities of being a scout have become too hard for me alone. But I see that you are quite strong, and I think you would be well suited to the plains in time. Do you have a good horse?" "Yes, he is a purebred Mustang named Shadowmane that I bought up in Philadelphia." "Good. The wagon train will start tomorrow morning, so you'd better get a good sleep, and while on the plains I will try to teach you some of the work you will be doing." Chapter 7. Comanches on the Warpath. The next morning Jack was up ready for his first day of scouting. He saddled Shadowmane and joined Bronco Bill. "Well, I see you were up nice and early this morning," greeted Bill. "The wagon train is to be starting in another hour. I hear rumors that the Comanche Indians are getting a little wild, and we'll have to keep a good lookout. But there is something I fear even more than the Injuns. and that is the lack of water we would have on the trail. It has been getting more hot than usual, and some of the rivers we would rely on for water could be getting low. Still, we might not have any trouble if we get a little rain. For the next minutes, Bill told Jack some of the things a scout would do on a wagon train, like keeping the wagon train on the trail, finding water, helping herd the animals, and staying on the lookout for Indian ambushes and raids. "Would the Indians attack us on the trail?" Jack asked. "They may. There's no telling what they might do if they're desperate. I suspect they're upset because the wagon trains are being shooting meat on their territory and not paying them for it. Most of the men on this wagon train are armed and prepared for an Indian attack. Have you been practicing with the Colts?" he asked as he saw Jack's 2 Colt revolvers strapped to his gun belt. Not much, except at a few rabbits now and then on the way here." "I could teach you, because if we do have a fight with Indians, every man must be able to defend himself, and it is also good to know how to shoot game for your own survival on the plains." Bronco Bill then strung up an empty bottle on a tree branch, and he showed Jack how to quickly draw the revolver and steadily aim it at the target. At first Jack missed over and over because the sharp recoil the weapon gave when holding it with one hand, so he had to use 2 hands before he finally hit it. Just keep practicing, you'll be hitting it like lightning," encouraged Bill. Just then they saw the wagon train was getting ready to start, so they both mounted their steeds and galloped over to join it. There were about 60 wagons and carts that made up the train. Soon the signal was given to start, and to the sounds of cheering and shooting from the fort, the train started off on the Santa Fe Trail. Jack was amazed at the towering rocks and gullies shaped by the wind that could sweep through the plains. The trail was well worn with the ruts from the previous wagon train, and Jack would help keep the herds going on the trail. The wagon train went on for many days before stopping for a quick lunch. The wagon train went on for a ways before stopping for a quick lunch. Then they kept going on until it was getting dark. The wagon master, Jeff Thompson, ordered the wagons to be put in a circle and all the animals put inside the circle. All the pioneers would start fires and cook their supper. Jack soon came riding in after seeing that all the animals were fine. He found Bill starting a fire and setting up his tent. "Phew, that sure is tiring work," Jack sighed as he stiffly climbed off Shadow Mane and came over to the fire. "Well, you did a good day's work considering this is your first day of being a scout. I know you must really be sore after galloping around a lot for the day, but you'll get used to it in a while. One thing you should start doing is practicing with a lasso so you can catch steers if it breaks loose. Now, the cowboys at the ranch where I used to work would use rawhide about 40 feet long that they would grease until it would run easily through the loop. We don't have any rawhide near long enough around here, but I'll see if I can find some rope that will do." Bill soon came back with about 40 feet of rope he had found. He knotted one end into a small loop and then slipped the other end through. "There, now you can see that stump in the ground over there. Well, you form your loop and gather the rest in the rope in coils. And to begin with, you stand 20 feet away and throw the rope over the stump." Jack tried this, but was surprised at how hard it was to get the loop over the stump, even from that distance. So he had to make the noose larger. Many times he would lasso a wagon instead of the stump, but finally he was able to throw it over the stump. He kept practicing while Bill was heating up their supper, and was able to throw it over the stump a few more times. If you keep practicing with your pistol and lasso every day, you will get a lot better. I've known many a cowboy who would throw a 50-foot rope, and some Mexicans who could use 60-foot lassos with supreme accuracy. But 40 feet is plenty for most things. Of course, the better you get at throwing, the more you can shorten the noose, because the smaller it is, the better, as the jerk comes all too quickly before the steer is prepared for it. And as for the pistol, it don't matter so much how good the aim is, as how fast you can draw the pistol. Your life could depend on how fast you can draw the weapon, because the fellow who can draw his pistol first will make the other quit. After supper, Jack set up his canvas tent that he had brought with him, and was soon fast asleep after a long day on the plains. Chapter 8. Attacked. For the next 2 weeks, the wagon train moved steadily forward. They sometimes would have to cross a river that would be mostly mud after all the hot weather. The train would have to stop, and the wagons would be coated with tar to make them float. Then, one after another, they would attempt the difficult crossing. With all the mud, the wheels and horses got stuck, so the men would have to get out and push. It would be many days before such rivers could be crossed by the whole train. During this time, Jack and Bill become good friends, as Bill liked the way Jack was always keen to do hard work, and now how fast he could learn so many new things. After these 2 weeks of practicing with the pistol, Jack had quite a steady aim with the pistol, and could draw almost as fast as Bill himself. He could also throw a lasso with some certainty over some steers' heads. It was 15 days since they had been on the Santa Fe Trail, when the train had halted at noon for lunch. Jack and Bill had set off on their horses to see if there was any water on the trail ahead, for them to set camp by later on. Jack and Bill galloped off for a few miles before they finally came to a stream on the side of the trail. "Well, here's some water, though it sure ain't much," said Jack. He then got off his horse and started to drink some of the water. Jack got off Shadow and started walking to the edge, when he saw some footprints in the mud. "Look here, Bill," he said. "There's some footprints in the mud by the stream. They don't look at all like our boot tracks." Bill came over and looked at him. "Why, they're moccasins clear as day. A few trappers and hunters wear them in these parts, but mostly Injuns. I'll bet there's some snooping around here. We best hide behind that rock and see if any come back." They both quickly hid behind a large rock. In a few minutes they saw 3 Indians walk to the stream. They were all wearing deerskin shirts and leggings, and their faces were smeared with black and red paint. 2 had tomahawks, and the other had a bow and a quiver of arrows. Jack immediately knew that they were on the warpath, and they both slipped out their pistols. The Indians were talking, when one suddenly stepped down and pointed to their boot tracks. The Indians quietly started to come closer to the rock. Just then there was a sharp crack as Bill's pistol shot the one who seemed to be the leader. Jack then quickly brought down the other, but before Bill could shoot the last one, he had bounded away and soon disappeared. "Quick, we best get away before the shots bring some more man Indians, though I'm sure that Indian will bring them soon enough," said Bill. They both jumped on their horses and galloped back to the wagon train. They found Jeff Thompson in his tent, and told him that the Comanches were on the warpath, not too far away. Thompson immediately ordered that a watch be set at night. The train soon got going, and all were anxiously watching the horizon for a sign of the Indians. But there was no sign of them until about 4:30, when they came to a large passage in between high rock that jetted up into the air. Jack felt uneasy as they entered the passage, single file, as he thought it would be a good place for the Comanches to ambush them. Just as Jack was starting to hope that that would not happen, there was a loud war whoop, and an instant later both sides of the canyon were swarming with Indians. Crack after crack resounded through the canyon as bullets and arrows whizzed towards them. Shadowmane reared violently, and it was all Jack could do to